Hello, friends, and welcome back to Market Shares. I'm your host, Tony Blodgett, and I'm here today with Peter Ryu. Peter is a friend of mine, one of our loan officers, a branch manager, and now the president of the Seattle chapter of AREAA. So welcome to Market Shares, Peter. Looking forward to chatting with you.
Yeah, thanks, Tony, for having me on. I've been watching Market Shares, been a follower, and it's kind of inspired me to start my own podcast.
Yeah, I've been wondering why I haven't been invited to your podcast yet, but maybe that'll be in the near future. Look, the reason I wanted to talk to you today, Peter, is we're going to get a little bit of background on you and how you got in the mortgage business. I think that's always an interesting story. But I love the way that you run your business and the way you run your branch. You're really big on doing networking events, putting together events. I'm a huge fan right now of getting in front of groups of people whenever you can. And I feel like you got a really good strategy for that. I mean, you keep the budget, realistic, but you're consistent with it, and it gives you and your loan officers an opportunity to get in front of, groups of people on a pretty regular basis. So that's really the main theme that I want to hit on today, but there's a handful of other questions I'm going to hit you with as we go. But let's just start with how you got in the mortgage business, how long you've been doing this, and did you have a career before mortgage?
Yeah. Numbers has always been my thing. Even just growing up, math was, came second nature to me. So when I went to University of Washington, and I majored in economics, and as soon as I got out of college, I started doing mortgages part-time. And so it all started with my dad. He's always, had his regular job, and he always had another, you want to call it a side hustle,
right?
Just to keep income flowing. So my first job out of high school or out of college was at Safeco Investments, and I actually worked in life and annuities, and I did mortgage on the side. And so I got into an opportunity about a year into it, working at Safeco Investments, where I can go mortgage full-time, and then I was also helping build a construction company. And I don't know if you remember this back in the day, it was so easy to get construction loans, right? And so this is where I started my career in the broker world.
Got it.
Yeah.
So how important, look, having a side hustle is, I think for a lot of people, almost necessary, in today's world. But how important is it, do you think, for a mortgage professional, if you're going to be successful at originating mortgages, that this has to be kind of your main jam? Sounds like to me you realize that for you, the mortgage was the side hustle, but you quickly realized, hey, if I'm going to be successful at this, I got to make this my main focus. Any thoughts on that? Because we see a lot of people trying to work multiple jobs and stuff right now in the mortgage industry. What's your advice for them?
Yeah, so the term jack of all trades, master of none. I truly believe that. So this was 2008 or 2009 when that mortgage crash happened, and I remember the company that I worked for, they couldn't pay my salary at running the construction side. So what I did was I opened up my own mortgage company and opened up my own construction company. This is right around 2008, and that was probably the worst time to do it, right?
Right.
But I just knew that it was hard to do both of them well, right? And so I had a mentor at the time, was kind of like, just pick one or the other, and mortgage was always kind of my bread and butter. And
yeah.
So this is the same thing I tell my loan officers is focus on, if you're going to do mortgage, focus on mortgage. Make it your day job and prioritize, your other things on the side. If you have to do Uber Eats or whatever it is, mortgage has to be front and center, and it's all with your dedication of time for the profession.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I really feel like a lot of people over the last few years, because the mortgage industry has been so tough, they've taken on other means of employment just to kind of fill the gaps, to kind of make ends meet. And it's such a distraction from what you're doing, in my opinion. And I think that now's the time, and I've talked about this on the podcast, now's the time to eliminate the distractions. You can make really good money in mortgage, and it only takes a couple transactions a month to do that. And if you've focused full time, there's enough transactions happening right now to be able to make a living doing this if you're doing all the right things and put full time into it. And I think that if you don't, you're always going to kind of struggle to build the pipeline. You're going to miss phone calls. You're going to miss opportunities to call people back where you could really solidify a relationship with a referral partner or with a borrower. And it'll cost you, and I think it will just breed more frustration. So I didn't plan on talking about that, but I really think now's the time to be 100% committed to mortgage if you're going to do mortgage.
Well, it's like you become reactive instead of proactive if you're doing it part-time.
Yeah.
Right. And so the great loan officers are networking, calling their database, calling realtors to cultivate relationships and generate business.
Right.
So if you're delivering Uber Eats during the day,
yeah.
I don't know how you're going to do that.
Well, let's talk about some of those things. One thing when we very first met, you told me that you do like monthly events. So let's talk a little bit about that, because one thing I'm really passionate about is doing events. And, we're working as a region, as a division on doing some larger events that we can, bring real estate agents in and really bring a lot of value to them. So what type of events are you doing and how consistently are you doing that?
Yeah. So the reason why I do events is I hate cold calling, right? I'll do it if I have to, but for me, business is much more pleasurable when you meet somebody. It's a casual meeting at a networking event, and then you do a follow-up. So I initially started an event called Wind Down Wednesday. And it was just to get people into a space, and that was it. It was really not nothing much more to it than just getting realtors into an arena or somewhere, right? And then it evolved, right? So I added some loan officers, and I wanted to add value to the events. And so we started adding guest speakers. And so the whole purpose of our events, our Thankful Thursday, this year it was themed Thankful Thursday, just because it was such a rough market last year. And so those of us who survived will thrive this year and moving forward. And so it's just kind of being thankful and giving back. And so with Thankful Thursday this year, it was held once a month. We either did, majority of them was all realtor related, but we did do some client appreciation in the summer, and we're doing one more client appreciation in December. But it's really just to add value to the realtors, because how many people just ask to go to coffee or go to lunch? I mean, anyone, that's not, anything new. But if I invite you as a realtor to come out to my event and learn about how you could save money on taxes, we brought on a CPA. We brought on Serafina and her team to talk about Google business fronts.
Right.
We brought on an appraisal panelist. We had 4 appraisers, and it's always a battle. It's like realtors versus appraisers on value, right? So it's like we got them all together, and they were able to have a Q&A session with them. So I thought that was it was a great topic, but the realtors really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit logistics on how you plan this out. Do you use like Eventbrite or something like that as far as organizing people there, or do you just let people know about it, or what are you doing to make sure people stay on track, know where the event's at, when it is, and make sure they show up?
Yeah, I mean, part of us doing events, people who do events know that part of it is hosting the event, but it's the afterwards, the follow-ups, that's really important. And so we definitely use Eventbrite because we were trying to capture information, their email and phone number, just so we can set up a meeting afterwards. But we have Eventbrite. We do like flyers. We'll send them out on social media. But we also do promo videos. What's great about New American Funding, and one of the reasons why our team came on board, was Tony invested in video. And so when we saw that we have this video team that came out and do the videos, they do the editing, and we have a great setup, it was like, why not use it, right, and promote our events? And it's gone really well.
And then you're leveraging the marketing team to help with some of the flyers and some of the collateral pieces too, and the Eventbrite and stuff like that.
Yeah, what's awesome was before coming on board, we would have to do everything. So like AJ we had a little studio, but it's pretty ghetto, Tony. Yeah. Nothing like this. But we put up some lights, and we did what we had. We worked with what we had, and we just did it all ourselves. But it was so time consuming. So coming over here to New American Funding, it was all taken care of by the marketing team, and they actually even show up day of. I call it game day, where someone's checking people in, someone is taking some video, B-roll, photos, and that's really helped with the promotion of it too.
Yeah, well, and I didn't, not intended to be a New American Funding commercial. It's just I am passionate about this. I'm just glad you're using the resources that we have available. I mean, as I think about how to really scale and provide support to loan officers, in my opinion, it's let's help them do the most impactful things for their business and do it in a way that doesn't distract from what it is that they need to be doing, which is really working on, mortgage consultations with their borrowers, coming up with the right strategies, meeting with real estate agents, doing the follow-up after the event. I mean, event planning, in my opinion, is a whole nother business. I mean, so let's have the event planners work on the event stuff, and let's have the loan officers work on the loan officer stuff, right? So I'm glad you're leveraging those resources. What has it meant to you and your business? But more than that, I mean, you've recruited people into this kind of model, right? Because you do it as a branch manager, your loan officers are involved, and you've been able to bring other loan officers in and say, hey, we can help you be part of what we're doing as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, so video and social media, like you said, it shouldn't be our main focus as a loan officer, because you still got to generate loans and talk with realtors. You can't replace that, right? Mortgage is a contact sport. You still have to do that. But I do think that social media, now long reel, is going to be the future of it. And I think of it like websites. Like 10 years ago, people would say, I don't need a website, right? But now you absolutely have to have a website to be a legitimate business. Same thing with social media and videos. You don't need it right now, but I think in 3 years, I say 3 to 5 years is going to be the absolute necessary piece to have in your business to be successful.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I would argue that you need to have at least something. You don't need to maybe have it on social media, but the reality is that people research people. That's what they do. Mm-hmm. And if I just go to YouTube or Google or Instagram or Facebook and I look somebody up, it's going to say a lot if they have a social media presence. They're putting out, informational content. They're seen as a leader in the marketplace. I'm going to be attracted to working with someone like that. And so I think that we are really on that cusp of where it's almost necessary to legitimize yourself in the face of the client, because a lot of clients out there, I mean, there are definitely a lot of millennials, but even, Gen Y, is it Gen Y, Gen Z? What's after millennial?
Gen
Z. Yeah. So, I mean, it's even Gen Zs that are starting to, the home buying journey right now, and they're expecting to see something on your social media presence. I mean, if you're just a ghost out there, I don't know, man. It's hard to legitimize. I think you can still obviously get the strong referrals and endorsements from the real estate agent, and that helps. But people are going to do their own research. And so I think that utilizing a podcast or somehow taking video, getting yourself on social media is a huge win. You guys have done a great job of that.
Yeah, and I would also say that, in order for us to be successful in our field, is we have to transact the way that the consumer wants to transact, right? And so a lot of millennials and people who are in tech, they don't want to necessarily meet with us face-to-face. They prefer to transact over email and text messages. So when you have a video out there, they will understand that you become an authoritative figure, right? And where they'll listen to you and you become an advisor. And so that's kind of, those are one of the strategies that we use.
Yeah. So AREAA, let's talk about that really quick. So I didn't know until you got here that you're the most recent. Are you the president-elect, or have you've already taken the seat as president of the Seattle chapter?
So I'll be the 2025 president chapter, the Seattle chapter president.
Okay. How long you been involved with AREAA for?
So I've been involved in some capacity for 7 years. And
okay.
So it first started out, it's funny. It was like I went for selfish reason, right? I went for personal reasons, but I stayed for the mission.
Right. Well, you went to network and meet people, right?
Right.
And, yeah,
right.
exactly.
That's really why what I initially started was like, hey, a room full of realtors, great. So it started there, and then I actually hosted a Tech Connect. It was a huge successful event for AREAA. I wasn't even a board member at the time, but I was just like, I see value in it. And I think we had about 230 people paying people to come to the event. And that involved to being a part of the board, which I've been a part of the board, I think about 5 years now. And so I've always been, I've been always asked to like step up and become the president of AREAA, but it's a huge time commitment, you know? And so my number one priority is always my production and my team's production, but I felt like this was a great opportunity and I didn't want to pass it up.
Yeah. So to clarify for people who don't know what AREAA is, right? So it's Asian Real Estate Association of America. Yeah. So AREAA, right? Okay. Not AREA like the hotel, but different than that. I was blown away when I was on AREA's website and just reading some of the statistics, really just about the number of Asian Americans that make up the population. Here in the Pacific Northwest, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
Across the country, it's a growing number, and it's a staggering amount of both existing citizens that are growing and communities that are growing, but also immigration to the United States. So it's definitely a demographic to pay attention to. It makes up a significant portion of the home buying community, if you will. So when you think about AREAA and you think about whether like NAHREP, AREAA, some of the other trade associations out there, and it's really focused on the Asian community. What are the benefits of someone who's not Asian, going to those events, maybe being a part of the association? Do you see a lot of that? And what are your thoughts on what just any mortgage or real estate professional could get out of being a part of an association like that?
Yeah, so I will say, first of all, you don't have to be Asian to be a member or a board member. We actually have board members that are not of Asian descent, so everybody's welcome. Right, so that's number one.
What are the benefits? I mean, what would you get?
Benefits
out of going to those events? What are you going to learn? That's going to help you in your real estate and your mortgage business.
So part of AREAA is representing the Asians, but also the Pacific Islander community, and that is actually the lowest home ownership of all demographics. And so number one is creating home sustainability. Right, for the minorities, but it also creates. If you want to think of it as a business aspect, it's a great arena to network. You're not only dealing with realtors and lenders and title company, but you're also dealing with builders. I'm one of the preferred lenders on a condo complex, a downtown Seattle property down in Seattle, and I wouldn't have met them unless if I wasn't part of AREAA. But their platform is huge. They're international. We have our convention coming up here next week, and this is where you really get a network with other people in other markets, pick their brains, see what's working in their market. We can bring it back over here because like social media, for example, we're so far behind New York, LA, the big cities. And I feel like it's an opportunity where if you're consistent, like what you're doing with market shares, you could be the leader of that space.
Yeah. So look, I think that, whether it's AREAA, whether it's, you're also, I see you oftentimes at the Washington Mortgage Bankers events. You'll show up to those. I'm a member of the board there and have been for, I don't even know how many years now, 10, 11 years. There's NAHREP, there's other, industry, associations like that. Look, at the end of the day, the benefit is, they all support a great cause. There's no question about that. They all have their, maybe they give to charities. There's other philanthropic things they do. It's typically, if they're real estate associations around home ownership, and I don't care what demographic you come from, there's going to be, underserved, underrepresented people in the marketplace. And a lot of it is just awareness to that, right? Like, Pacific Islander, I didn't know that, So being aware that we have large communities of people who probably have never been exposed to the idea of a home ownership, probably don't have the education that or access to the education, and just being aware of that, and then making content that's available, to those folks, partnering with real estate agents who help serve those communities, and come at it from the approach that, hey, I understand the challenges in the community. You don't have to be Asian or Pacific Islander to be able to recognize where, someone can be helped or serviced, right? So, I love that. So after President, what do you see? What do you see there? Any big events this year? Are you going to continue to be involved in the association after that?
So this year, coming in as president, my one of my initiatives is to collaborate more with the other organizations like NAHREP, because there's strength in numbers.
Yeah.
Right? If we're coming in, we just did an expo this year, and it's all about homeownership. We also did an ADU DADU event where we talked about the different zoning laws. I mean, there's a lot of information that we can bring in, pulling together, and as an organization, that's what we should be doing.
Yeah, if you want a total education on DADUs, a couple episodes ago, I did like an hour long. I don't know if you saw that episode, but we went super deep with Mike Appleby about DADUs. But look, I mean, there's a perfect example. I think that whether, there's a lot of, we're seeing this in all demographics, is multi-generational housing. You see it a lot in Asian families, though, right? There's a thought of, when the kids get older, they take care of their parents, and then obviously we there's challenges with the young ones, getting out of college and being able to move on. And so you see a lot of multi-generational households. It's very common, in Asian culture, but and Hispanic and others, but it's almost a necessity for a lot of people just because of the economics of homeownership and the challenges. And so bringing ideas like that. The other thing that I know you're passionate about is working with investors, and being a loan professional who understands investment property purchasing. And I have to imagine, and I know that I've done lots of loans over the years. A lot of people who immigrate, who immigrate here to the States, I'm assuming many Asians are looking to, be investors and grow a real estate portfolio. So is that a lot of people you network there at those events as well?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a pool of just real estate professionals who just focus just on investments, flips and wholesaling, and there's a whole just different side of real estate that we're kind of involved in, because we have some like non-QM type products that was facilitated. But I feel like the whole piece of educating is one of the reasons why I do the social media, is because just simple things like taxes, right? I just did a podcast with Velocity 1031 Exchange where we just talked about what are the advantages of doing a 1031 exchange, like who would take advantage of it. And to us, it might seem like simple information, but I've had realtors say, hey, I have a owner-occupied property, and they want to sell it, and they want to do a 1031 exchange. And I'm like, can't do a 1031 with a primary residence, but you can do it with an investment property, and there's some other sections of the tax laws that do apply.
Yeah. Well, 1031 exchanges, I think, are people don't understand them. They're underutilized. It's a great way to defer capital gains from, one transaction and roll that into another. But what I love about this conversation, Peter, and for those of you who are thinking, man, I'd love to do events, but I don't know what to even talk about. I mean, you've literally given more than a handful of ideas. I mean, having appraisers come in, right? Talk about the appraisal process, 1031 exchanges, accountants, financial planners, having other, top performing real estate agents come in and talk to other real estate, professionals about how to mimic their business. Same with mortgage people. Insurance is a huge one right now, and the challenges with homeowners insurance, it's not getting better at this point. It's getting more challenging. So talking about that, I could see doing a class about, condominiums. More and more people are, especially younger people, are buying close to city centers. And when you're buying in a city center, and that's down in the market where you're at in Bellevue and Seattle, you got to understand how condos work. It's not like typical home ownership, and there's certain things to look out for. There's certain things that could cause difficulty in financing a property if it's a condo, and understanding that. Maybe you see a brand new beautiful complex. Well, there can be challenges, purchasing in a building that is a brand new building. So maybe talking about condos. I mean, I hope everyone gets some inspiration from this conversation that doing events and networking and making that a central part of your business not only allows you to eliminate a lot of the cold calling that people really resist in the sales process. It allows you to be an expert where you have the opportunity for one person or a small group of people to talk to a large group of people. That's a massive way of amplifying your influence. And there's no shortage of things that you could put on an event about that's going to help facilitate that. Really quick before we wrap up on events, how do you find the locations, and how do you stay within a budget? Because some people think about events like, oh my God, that sounds like a really expensive strategy. And you do it for, not that much money typically. So how are you doing your events? What's your typical budget for something like that?
Well, just like with every business, I utilize my sphere, right? So people I know who may own a space, or they own a restaurant or a brewery or something, I'll reach out to them and then basically ask for a favor. We do meet, their minimum requirements for food and beverages, but I think they don't need to be elaborate. They don't need to be every time at the Four Seasons, right? You can get just as much information and as much fun in an office setting. Obviously, I try to get it out of the office setting just because of some people when they come into a mortgage office, they think they're gonna get sold.
Right.
And so I try to do it off-site.
And are these like in the evening? Or are these like a happy hour type events?
Yeah, typically we do it like 4 to 6.
Okay.
So people can go back to their families afterwards. But of course, there's going to be some younger professionals who want to go to the after party. And that's really when my team and I are able to really build rapport. And connect with them, because during the event you get to meet with them, talk with them, but when afterwards, when kind of the guards are down, they saw what it was about, then they're more open to coming up with them, doing a meeting afterwards, a one-on-one.
Yeah. Well, it's all about building relationships, and it's a great, jumping off point to build a deeper relationship. All right. So as we get ready to land this plane, I just have a couple questions for you. Look, this has been a really challenging market, most people would say, over the last few years. We just had a cycle where rates got better. Now rates are worse. The day we're recording this, not a good day. Rates got worse today. But what, in your eyes, and what are the biggest challenges that you see in this market as a mortgage professional? As a loan officer, as a producer, what's the biggest challenge you deal with?
Yeah, I think the conversations about rate is that's always important and forefront for clients, but the way I explain it to them is it's like timing the stock market. The real estate, the bond market's much more difficult to time than the stock market. So focusing more on what is your mortgage plan? What is your goals? Like, if you want to buy a home, if it's not now or later, what does that look like? And I think what a lot of people do is they focus too much on the rates, the loan officers do, and that's like their best foot forward. Is like, hey, right, I got this rate. And all of a sudden, rates have shot up 0.5%, and then now they have no value add.
Right. So it's really making the conversation more about the borrower's goals, timeline, what they're trying to accomplish, how you're going to structure their mortgage, right? Mm-hmm. And I think also explaining to people that while we wait around for rates to come down, home values keep going up.
Yep.
I mean, there's no question about it. I mean, even year over year, month over month numbers continue to increase despite where mortgage interest rates are. And I think when rates come down, that's only going to accelerate. So really, so it sounds to me like what you're saying is shifting the conversation away from what's the rate, because we know that's going to change and it's unpredictable, and it doesn't really matter at the end of the day if a family's goals is to get into a house, build their future and their net worth, you can help them with that strategy despite what it is interest rates are doing. And in doing so, you're bringing more value to you and making it less about the interest rate at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I say if your best point or your best selling point as a loan officer is your rate, you'll be out of the business.
Yeah.
Definitely be out of the business. So it's like, what else do you provide?
Yeah.
Home buyer class.
Someone's always willing to do something for less.
And
right?
and that's why
race to the bottom.
Mortgage right now, it's so hard to be profitable for mortgage companies. That's why you see the big banks exiting mortgage or actually, largely diminishing their force.
Yeah. No, trust me. I know all about the challenges with profitability in the mortgage business. That could be a whole nother episode here on market shares, perhaps. All right, biggest opportunity. What's the biggest opportunity you see right now in the marketplace as a loan officer, branch manager? What do you see out there that people should be excited about?
Yeah, I mean, I think using a lot of the technology stuff is super exciting for me. I think if you can marry the whole old school mentality of getting out there, meeting with realtors, setting up meetings, and then marrying that with social media, long form, getting out there. Because if you think about it, social media is your influence, right? And it's free. I mean, technically, it's the content that you put out it just takes time, right, and effort, but you're not going to get more influence. You're not going to reach as many people without social media.
Yeah. Well, and I would say events is if you're going to do it in person and not social media, events is the number one way to get in front of groups of people. I think you're never going to have the kind of reach you could have in social media. Despite how many clicks and views and likes you get, people are seeing your content, whether you know it or not, and they are, forming their opinion about you. But more than that, people are going to research you. People are just the first thing. I mean, if I get introduced to someone new, the first thing I do is I go to Facebook, then I go to Instagram, then I'll look on YouTube. You'll look these people up, and get a sense of who is it that I'm doing business with. And if you have no representation of who you are out there for people to find, they either, aren't going to take a chance. They'll go with someone else that maybe they were referred. Or maybe you get lucky, and they forge through it. There is the old school way of doing it, but I like what you're saying there. This is still a contact sport. It's still a relationship business. You still have to get out and prospect and meet people. Never abandon that. But if you can add to that, social media, video, leveraging AI, right? I mean, I think AI is huge in the coming year. I'm learning more and more ways every week of leveraging AI to not replace what it is that we do as mortgage professionals, but enhance it, speed things up. It's like a shortcut in many ways to take these mundane tasks off of our plate and free us up to do the things that are actually income producing. So I think AI is a big one, underutilized right now by loan officers. But that's good stuff, Peter. I appreciate you coming on, sharing this with our audience. You guys, I've been talking about it. I've been talking about doing events and networking. Join a group, whether it's AREAA, whether it's NAHREP, whether it's your local MBA chapter. It's so important, I think, to be involved in that. I've mentioned this on the podcast before. I mean, countless number of relationships that I have today, people that have ultimately, come to work for me, or people that are just my friends, people that I reach out to, my confidants in the mortgage space, people I've had on this podcast. I met them through doing, for being a part of an association or going to events or hosting events. It's a big part of what we do. And Peter, I think you brought a level of insight to people that is something they can take action on. What Peter's doing is not rocket science, right? I mean, he is leveraging our marketing team to help him do some of this. But before he had that, he did it on his own, and you can do it, but be intentional about it. I love like a Thirsty Thursday or Wind Down Wednesday, or come up with a theme that you can kind of market and get people bought into showing up, bring them value, and use that to build relationships and create your follow-up list. Doesn't mean you don't still need to make calls. They just won't be cold calls anymore because you've met them, you've invited them to an event, and then next month when you have the event, you now have a reason to proactively reach out, invite them to the event, and check in with them on their business, right? So it's a built-in follow-up campaign if you continue to do the events. So Peter, thanks for your time today. Appreciate you coming in.
Yeah,
I love seeing what you're doing. Maybe you'll have me on your podcast at some point. I'll be a special guest.
Definitely.
All right, guys. Well, for those of you that are watching, I appreciate your time and attention. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Peter. I hope that you watch our content every single Friday when we come out with a new episode, 10 a.m. Pacific time. And as I always ask, the number one thing that you could do to help this podcast grow is let people know about it. I'd like to think that, having a lot of subscribers and, sharing it on social media is it'll grow organically. I'm not too worried about that. But the biggest endorsement could be, hey, do you watch Market Shares? You should check that out. Tell one of your friends, tell one of your coworkers to come check out Market Shares if you enjoy this content. And I will see you next week. Take care.